Hello everybody, I'm Jeremy and I'm gonna show you how to make this document have a menu scroll. So let me just demo it to you right now. So here I have a page with a menu and some long text to be able to scroll a lot. So if I scroll down, we see the menu is disappearing and I scroll down and just doesn't appear. And if I scroll up just a tiny bit, it shows again. So you can interact with this, and if you scroll down, it hides again. So that's the end goal here. We're gonna take here out the finished product, and we're gonna use our empty menu scroll file to build this. So let's just reset to the top over there. So let's look at the HTML very quickly and the CSS. So the HTML is very basic. It's a responsive document with a header, a main, and a footer, and the script at the bottom. The paragraph is long enough to have plenty scroll available. Now let's look at the CSS. The CSS is very simple. From line 1 to line 43, it's just basic styles to make the page responsive, the menu responsive. If we look at the, see like this, it's kind of responsive in a way, enough to make it nice looking. And from line 45, that's where we have the things that interest us the most. So the header is taking 100% of the width. Its position is fixed. It is essential to allow the scrolling effect to work later on. Why? Because the effect is simply to hide and show the menu on the scroll events. If the relative and absolute property are used, it would not work because the element doesn't follow the scroll. Whereas when you are fixed here, you see the menu stays in place at the top. So the last bit about the CSS is those two classes with the opacity 1 and 0, whether we want to show or hide. So the opacity is just used to make a nice disappearing effect as a transition here execute. The margin is used to actually offset of the screen the menu. Okay, now that we looked at the CSS and JavaScript, let's dive in the JavaScript part. So what is our goal? We want to hide the menu as we scroll down, as I showed you in the beginning of the tutorial, and then, sorry, we want to hide the header on scrolling down, like I showed you, and show the header on scrolling up and keeping it hidden or showed based on the scrolling direction. To know when to hide or show a menu, we need to detect when we are scrolling down or up. So we need to detect the directions. We need to build a scroll distance, calculate the scroll distance. So it's basically when you scroll, it's a value, and when it's you stop, you need to reset the start and scroll again and calculate the difference, which is the distance, and implement then to finish the calculator onto the page to actually show and hide the menu. So let's start with the detecting when we're scrolling. So it's as simple as looking at the window property. So it's the window that add event listener. So why the window? Because when we're scrolling here, we're on a page and the effect is applied on the page itself. So this is what we want to hide, and as we scroll down the body, the main, that's where we want to apply it. So the scroll activity event, so we do this event. We're not going to use really the event, because the event doesn't contain anything. We can just quickly see this by doing a console log event. Okay, let's just open the console and do a refresh. Okay, why window I didn't? Oh yeah, sorry, my bad. It's scroll with proper spelling. There we go. Okay, so the event doesn't contain anything, but if we log the window, we might find something. So let's just window, sorry for that. Okay, so here we have there is a scroll. By default, when it loads, it's kind of already running, because there is like a tiny scroll, and what we want is like, oh yes, so that's what we are looking at. So we have scroll X and scroll Y, but we are scrolling up and down, or down and up. So it's the y-axis we want to look at. So basically the scroll y is the value we want to use. As we scroll down, you see the value that is going to change. So let's just scroll y, log this value, back to the top and refresh. So okay, we see that the value increased, and now we're going up, it decreases. Nothing surprising here. So the value that is log is the last one, is actually our end value. So we're gonna need to use that, and we're gonna need to find out the start value and make the difference between the two to calculate the distance. So because we're gonna build a calculator later on, let's just right away build a function we call scroll distance with no parameters for the moment there, and we could just call it right away there. So as I said, let's start by adding the variables that we need. So I'll use the x6 syntax like you saw with the function declaration. Here I want to use let because it's going to be changed as we go down. Distance. Okay. So let's get rid of this for the moment. So we need to set the start. So the start is basically as soon as we detect a scroll event, we need to store it. So if the start is not set, we will console log setting start here, just so we can have a nice expressive log after, and then we do start equal window dot scroll y. And then we have end equal, well, the same thing. So at the moment, as you can imagine, it's going to be the exact same value. And then we have distance equal end minus start, nothing major. And we just log start, end, and distance. Okay, let's just refresh. Okay, so we have here, we do a scroll, we stop, and then we scroll and we stop, and we see that the start doesn't change. This end is basically where we stop at, and the distance is the difference. But if we scroll up, we would expect that the distance is negative from the point we started, and so our main issue here is to make sure the start value is changed as we need to. So how can we achieve that? We can use a set timeout to delay the reading of the end value. Why? Because the scroll event is fired continuously. So using the set timeout, we're going to see that. And we don't need to do anything with all the events. We just need to read the last one. So we're going to introduce a new variable that we call is scrolling to base. There is scrolling there. And we're going to wrap up this part here, because as we start scrolling, we get the start. So that's the first event. We're going to get the first the start value. And we're going to wrap up our code to setting the end value here. So we are going to do set timeout. I'll take the timeout into a property at the top. Okay. Here, let's timeout, and we'll put a second so it's kind of obvious that we're waiting. Let's add a few comments. So just to track that the timeout started, and that the timeout is over. Okay, I think I have an error somewhere because it's not formatting. Yes, so, oh yes, sorry, I forgot the comma here. Thank you, DevTools. Okay, so we have our code here. Okay, you see what it did? Okay, let's just try scroll, stop, scroll, stop. So we see that there is like 12 scroll events, and then it just logs everything. So to avoid this, we need to cancel all timeouts but the last one. So to do that is just as simple as doing window dot clear timeout, and we just give this name of the timeout, which is our is scrolling variable. So let's do this again. And there we have it. Scroll, and we have the distance. The only thing is we are not getting the start value to be done correctly. So what we need to do is we need to reset the values start, end, and distance at the end of the timeout. That is the one we listen to. So we just do a start equal null is a semicolon, and end equal null, and distance equal null. Let's refresh and do the sequence again. So start, there, start, there we go. That's the value we want here. We started at 1, we scrolled almost 300, then we started again at 301, and we scrolled 200, and that's the value we want, and we need to send back. So now that we have that, we can also see that the distance is calculated negatively when we're scrolling up. So everything we needed to make the calculator is ready to implement. Let's check the next part with the implementation. So to start implementing the scroll calculator, we need to work on the hiding part. We say we want to hide on scrolling down. Where do we put that? I think with our function here, what's missing is we're not returning the distance we calculate. So to do that, we can use the functionality we call in JavaScript a callback. So let's set it up. We need to modify a function which gonna take here a callback. We need to implement it. So basically at the time we want to we have calculated the distance, so we just send back the distance, and then we need to implement it in here. So callback is just a function with here is the variable, the distance that is sent back. So then we just log it, distance. I'll just do a very quick traveled. So, okay, so let's refresh that. We scroll. Okay, that's the value we want. So we are getting it. So now we have done that. We're gonna just implement it with the HTML. So let's replace this log with, so if the distance is greater than 0, we hide the menu. Else, we show the menu. So how to hide it? We're gonna need to first select the header element. So I'll just do a const header element equal document dot query selector all, which is very handy, and we just do like header, like very simple. We'll just declare, because I like to, because we're going to reuse the classes, we'll declare the hide class, which is equal to hide header, and the show class for the show header. So what now we have the header element, we just do a class list, and we add hide class. Obviously, because we want to, we could have set the other class depending on the scroll direction. We want to make sure the show class is removed. And then it is as simple as just doing the opposite. So we remove and we add. So let's test this. Let's scroll back up. Okay, I scroll down. Okay, here it was a bit slow. I think you know why. And I scroll up. Okay, we are getting the effect we wanted. So it's slow because Remember, we set the timeout to 1 second just to really see things slowly. I think you can adjust this value like to, I don't know, 100 millisecond. Let's try this. It's kind of nice looking. So here you have it. All the JavaScript is not that long. It's not complicated. I hope I was clear enough. So I hope that was fun. I hope you learned a lot in this tutorial and that you were able to code along. I advise you to pause in the different sections. The principle we learned today are, detection of the scrolling down and up, calculating the scrolling distance, and implementing the scrolling function with a callback and using it with simple JavaScript, adding a class and removing a class. If you like it, giving a thumb up. If you didn't, just give 2 thumb down if you can. Let me know in the comments if you have any question, and I'll see you later for another video. Credits to Chris Ferdinandi, who showed me this trick and helped me understand many principles, the callback, the scrolling, mainly the callback and the set timeout to implement this. Check out his website and subscribe to his newsletter. His tips don't end with this one. It's packed with very interesting things, and I really appreciate reading about all he has to share. Thank you and have a good day. Bye bye.